Today, we're looking at a very serious situation that has just unfolded regarding the state of Indiana taking direct legal action against Roblox and Discord. We're going to go over the specific accusations being made by the Attorney General, and we'll also go over the tragic circumstances that led up to this legal battle. Additionally, we'll cover how both of these tech companies are trying to defend themselves, and even probably the most surprising way the community is reacting to the government stepping in. It is a lot to unpack, especially since this is not the first time we have seen states go after these platforms. Now, over the past few months, we have seen a growing trend of legal scrutiny directed at the platform. Just recently, we saw the platform get hit by massive legal settlements from states like Nevada, Alabama, and West Virginia. These states have been cracking down hard on how these digital spaces operate and handle consumer protection. So seeing another state step up to the plate is not entirely surprising, but the specific angle Indiana is taking brings a whole new level of pressure to the table. According to recent reports, the Indiana Attorney General, Todd Rukita, has officially filed a lawsuit against both Roblox and Discord. The core of this legal action alleges that these companies have failed to provide sufficient protection against bad actors targeting younger individuals online. Rokita claims that these platforms know full well that dangerous individuals use their services to contact vulnerable individuals, yet they continue to promote themselves as safe environments. He goes as far as calling this behavior reckless and a clear violation of the Deceptive Consumer Sales Act in Indiana. They are seeking to hold these platforms accountable to protect families in their state. The lawsuit brings up a very tragic case involving a 17-year-old from Fishers who was allegedly enticed from her home in January after interacting with an individual on both platforms for months, and this situation ended in a deeply unfortunate outcome in Ohio. The family of the teenager released a statement supporting the lawsuit, expressing that families are too often left navigating dangerous online environments without the transparency or urgency they deserve. They firmly believe parents need the ability to make informed decisions regarding safety. The attorney for another family who sued last year pointed out that these gaming spaces have become a common first point of contact. They argue that current protections just fall short and do not stop harmful content or coercion. The reality is that moderating millions of daily interactions is a monumental task. But when the consequences are this severe, the argument that a platform is doing its best often rings hollow for the families affected. When confronted with these allegations, both companies came forward to defend their current safety measures. The chief safety officer for Roblox, Matt Kaufman, issued a statement claiming they shared a commitment to keeping users safe. He emphasized that they built a multi-layer safety system with industry-leading safeguards. To back this up, the platform pointed to the recent rollout of mandatory facial age estimation for users trying to access certain chat features. They are also preparing to launch age-based accounts that will restrict content in chat settings depending on how old your user is. Furthermore, they clarified that users cannot exchange images or videos in the chat natively, and they intentionally do not encrypt communications so that AI detection tools and human moderators can actively monitor conversations for personal information exchange. Discord also pushed back against these claims, stating that users must be at least 13 years old to use the app, and that they proactively scan for and remove illegal and dangerous material. They felt the lawsuit did not accurately reflect the platform they have built or the investments they have made into user safety over the years. But critics are quick to point out that age gates on the internet are notoriously easy to bypass, making them almost entirely ineffective as a primary line of defense. Simply asking users to input a birthday from the drop-down menu does very little to stop a determined child from creating an account, and it certainly does not stop an adult from lying about their identity to blend in. The fundamental architecture of Discord, which relies on private servers and direct messaging, inherently makes it much harder to police than a public game lobby. Now let's pause and analyze the corporate responses. It is standard PR damage control as usual, but there is some truth to the changes being made. Anyone who has played over the last few months knows that the facial age verification rollout has been very aggressive and very controversial within the player base. They're actively trying to segregate the audience by age to prevent adults from easily mingling with much younger players in unrestricted spaces. But however, the core platform remains, since bad actors do not play by the rules. They will lie about their age, they'll use workarounds, and they will find the cracks in AI moderation. A text filter can only do so much when someone uses coded language or simply asks for a username for another app, like Discord for example. The lawsuit highlights this exact gap, since the Attorney General points out that despite these claimed protections, both platforms have known problems with preventing the facilitation of dangerous material. They cite historical cases to establish a pattern of negligence. For example, they referenced a Florida man in 2019 and also brought up a much more recent case from 2024 where the FBI arrested a Michigan man. Investigators noted that he admitted to using the gaming platform to talk to kids before eventually moving the conversations over to Discord to use them. This proves that the pipeline is real, highly effective for bad actors, and has been actively exploited for years right under the noses of the moderation teams. The state is asking for sweeping injunctive relief to prevent further harm, disgorgement of all money obtained from these deceptive practices, and civil penalties of up to $5,000 per knowing violation. Now this is where the situation gets very interesting, because you would think the general public would fully side with the government on an issue concerning safety. However, the sentiment among frequent players is remarkably different compared to how it was before Well, for example, the free schlep situation. Many people feel like the platform is being unfairly targeted after they have already ruined the user experience to comply with these exact types of demands. A user named Tallkyle argued that for the past few months, the developers have completely dismantled the 20-year-old platform just to address its safety concerns. They pointed out how facial verification is practically mandatory and how age segregation has effectively ruined in-game chatting for everyone else. They acknowledged that moderation could be better, but expressed exasperation, saying that the developers are actually trying. They fear that another lawsuit is just going to force a company to butcher the platform even more, questioning what else they're supposed to do, like removing the chat feature entirely. This perspective really shows the exhaustion of the older player base who have been along for the ride for years. If you're an older teenager or young adult trying to enjoy a game, the recent safety updates have been extremely restrictive and intrusive. You have multiple hoops to jump through just to talk to your friends, and certain popular games are entirely locked off if you do not want to hand over a government identification or scan your face into a corporate database. There's a very vocal group of users who believe that punishing the entire player base for the actions of a malicious minority makes the product significantly worse for everyone involved. They argue that the company should focus more on targeted human moderation rather than sweeping automated restrictions that break the fundamental social aspects of the game. But at the same time, when lives are being ruined, it is hard to argue that convenience should outweigh security. It is the balancing act that the platform is currently failing to maintain, leaving both the parents and the players deeply unsatisfied. Another user named Yuma echoed this frustration, questioning what the states actually want the company to do at this point. They stated that the platform has already gone above and beyond with restrictive updates, yet they're still getting hit with sweeping legal action from multiple states, and took a very cynical view, suggesting that the government does not actually care about the safety aspect. Another individual named Sonic brought up a similar point, suggesting that at this stage, countries and states are only pursuing these legal actions for the financial payout rather than genuine concern. They pointed out that despite making several drastic changes and doing almost everything asked of them, it is never enough for these regulatory bodies, and the demands just keep coming over and over again. It is very easy to look at a government lawsuit asking for thousands of dollars per violation and assume it is just a cash grab. States see these tech giants generating billions of dollars in revenue, and finding consumer protection violations is a reliable way to secure a large settlement. But we cannot completely dismiss the real-world harm being documented in these filings. Whether the state is motivated by money or protection, the underlying facts remain that bad people are using these services to do terrible things. The community is right to point out that no amount of AI filtering is going to completely stop human malice. If they completely remove the chat feature, people will just use third-party voice apps. If they restrict third-party apps, people will use social media. Bad actors will always find a way to circumvent the system. This entire situation exposes a stark reality that relying on a corporation to guarantee perfect safety and a massive online multiplayer ecosystem is a failing battle from the start. Placing the entirety of the blame on the platform ignores a crucial piece of the whole situation. Relying entirely on corporate moderation to parent the internet is honestly flawed from the ground up. Now, platforms definitely need to be held accountable for obvious negligence and a complete lack of basic safeguards, but no algorithm or age verification system will ever be enough without actual parental supervision and educating younger users on how to spot manipulative behavior before it escalates. It is essentially a shared responsibility, and pointing fingers at only one or the other is not going to make things any better for the people being affected this day. And with that being said, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.